Joining me now on all this and more is former federal prosecutor Jim Trusty. Jim, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Do you think that the government, the administration, is going to allow this Kilmar Abrego Garcia prosecution in Tennessee to move forward, or are they going to move to just deport him to Uganda as soon as they can?
Yeah, nobody knows. Obviously, the rumbling coming from his lawyer is that he suspects there's going to be a deportation sooner rather than later. And I have to say, I mean, that's really kind of poking the bear with a very active Maryland judge who has weighed in and said, I want to see more of a due process type hearing before anything like this would happen. So it'll be really intriguing to see how much of a fight they want to get in with the District Court of Maryland. But on the Tennessee side, look, if it's a genuine case, and they've said it is, that they can prove that his interdiction in Tennessee was one of dozens of times that he smuggled people into the U.S. If the ties to MS-13 mean he was smuggling in gang members, among others, those are pretty powerful facts that could lead to a big sentence and, of course, to his deportation after he's locked up on that sentence. So I kind of hope that the administration says, look, we don't like the rulings in terms of letting him out in the community, but the risk is on them. We've done everything we can. Let's hurry up, go to trial, get him convicted, and then boot him on the back end. And frankly, again, it was his win, his claim that as an MS-13 member, he couldn't be deported back to El Salvador, that's driving these third country searches. So it's a bit rich to have the lawyer say, you know, how dare you say he's MS-13, but don't send him to El Salvador because as an MS-13 member, he's in trouble.
Yeah, coming also from the White House, too, the president is suggesting that Chicago may be the next city to see National Guard troops. Now, it's a little easier, I guess, legally to do so here. Washington, D.C. isn't part of a state. Chicago is. How much legal room does the White House, the administration, have to put National Guard troops on the streets of Chicago?
Yeah, maybe more than you think. You know, the litigation in Los Angeles was on this issue, and it was breaking Trump's way, and then the deployment eventually ended. So, look, I think the thing to remember, the devil in the details, are two things. Number one, federal resources being poured in to help state departments is a force multiplier. It always helps. I used to do gang cases, organized crime cases, and I loved seeing the task force approach. But when you're talking about the National Guard, it's really it's refilling the back lines. It's putting people in the office, putting people in the detention facilities, and freeing up more federal agents to go out on the streets. And then maybe there's a deterrent presence as well, where they're out on the streets and they're seen, but they're not the primary investigators. So I think there's room in Chicago and other places to do this on a constitutionally valid level and to actually make a dent in violent crime like what has happened for the last 2 weeks in D.C.
Yeah, and certainly in D.C., you talk about the presence here. They're all over the National Mall. They're all over Union Station, which is a major gateway into the city. Another aspect of this, too, is the administration says it's going to use JAG lawyers, basically military lawyers, to help with prosecutions here in Washington, D.C. Do you think that military prosecutors are equipped to prosecute crimes here on civilian crimes here in D.C.?
Yeah, well, look, they do get plenty of experience dealing with kind of typical crimes that you'd see in any city. So it's not just military court martial type experience, but that's really kind of a moment by moment thing. You know, some JAG officers have really rich experience and bring a lot to the table. Others, it's much more narrow. So I don't really prejudge that as being particularly helpful or successful. You know, January 6th, you had prosecutors from around the country volunteering to come into D.C. You could kind of guess their political bent by the fact that they'd come from Portland or Seattle and come over to D.C. for a year to do those cases. I wouldn't mind seeing a surge of prosecutors from either Main Justice or from U.S. attorneys' offices, at least in addition to the JAG officers as a possible launch pad for more cases.
Do the rules and laws that the D.C. Council and mayor have signed, especially on criminal justice over the last few years, really hamper what federal prosecutors can do here? And do you think that that's a case now for Congress to get involved?
Well, yeah, it's difficult because, you know, D.C. is a strange bird. It's got Superior Court and federal court, and all which is affected by decisions as to which court to be in. But on the Superior Court side, this is where you have these laws, no bail type things, where juveniles are treated just too leniently. And that's really the driver for a lot of the violent crime in D.C. is juvenile cases where they're 13, 14, 15 years old. They're not particularly well equipped to be in an adult prison, don't get me wrong, but that the options for the juvenile court treatment are so limited that they take away a message of empowerment. Hey, I'm never going to get really jailed. Now's my time to do carjackings. Now's my time to gratuitously assault people. And that's what's playing out in the city, and not even just in in neighborhoods where you might expect it, but all across the city, that's what's kind of driven the public perception that it's a very unsafe city these days.
And now, you have the national security advisor, the former national security advisor, had his home raided by the FBI. Apparently, according to some reporting, that has to do with a suggestion or allegations that he may have mishandled classified information. What kind of penalties could John Bolton face? And then on top of that, there is suggestion by opponents of this raid who say this is nothing more than the president being vindictive.
Yeah, I mean, look, classified documents cases can kind of span a wide range of conduct with very different likely penalties. If you unwittingly possess a few documents that you normally had lawful access to, or you once had lawful access to, that's one thing. On the other extreme are people that are literally shopping the information to foreign powers. Those are document cases too, and that's espionage at the highest level. And then somewhere in between, this may be where John Bolton lands, are the people that unfortunately think kiss and tell books are a great idea. And so if you think about it, Joe Biden was holding on to classified documents because he wanted to have a book about how wonderful he was as a vice president. General Petraeus got in trouble with an author and classified documents. And that seems to be the story with John Bolton. But the one thing I would say is, the people that are complaining about revenge or weaponization probably should have spoke up back in 22 and 23, among other years, if they really wanted to be consistent on this. And what I love so far is we're not getting a bunch of leaks. This is not Jim Comey with his special employee to leak things to the New York Times to tell you everything about the evidence and to justify themselves politically. We're all sitting here guessing and saying we don't know where this is going. That's a good sign that law enforcement's treating it professionally.
Yeah, that's right. We have no idea what they have, what evidence they may have, and I guess whether or not John Bolton will be charged, but we'll have to stay tuned and see. Jim Trusty, former federal prosecutor and former Trump lawyer, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure, good to see you.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.